In Ukraine, the most expensive tanks in the world are dying for less than the price of a used motorcycle. A modern Russian T-90M costs around $4.5 million. The first-person view drones that kill them cost around $500. American Abrams tanks, donated to Ukraine in early 2024, started burning within months of arrival. The footage made it onto every defense ministry briefing in the world, including the one inside the Pentagon. And in a small auditorium in Detroit, in January of 2026, the U.S. Army revealed what it had been quietly building in response. It is called the M1E3. The Army has now started feeding it live ammunition, and the targets on the range are not the ones you would assume. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to a decision the Army made in September of 2023. A decision that almost no one outside of armored warfare circles noticed at the time. The Army killed the M1A2 SEPV4. The SEPV4 was supposed to be the next iteration of the Abrams, a standard upgrade, with new sensors, a new ammunition data link, and better thermal optics. The kind of incremental improvement the Army had been doing to the Abrams since the early 1980s. But Army leadership looked at the upgrade plan, looked at what was happening to armor in Ukraine, and concluded that more weight was not the answer. The Abrams was already 78 tons. The SEPV4 was going to push it higher. And every additional ton meant slower deployment, more fuel burned per mile, fewer bridges that could support the weight, and fewer roads it could use at all. So they canceled the upgrade and started something else. The replacement program was originally projected to deliver prototypes in 2031. That timeline did not survive contact with reality. As Russian and Ukrainian armored losses kept mounting, and as commercial drone technology kept getting cheaper, Army Chief of Staff General Randy George announced in September of 2025 that prototypes would be inside Army formations in 2026. He cut the schedule by more than half. In December of 2025, General Dynamics Land Systems delivered the first M1E3 prototype. The Army received it, and on January 14th of 2026, they parked it on the floor of the Detroit Auto Show and let the world look at it. The first thing anyone noticed was the turret. On every Abrams tank since the original M1 rolled off the line in 1980, the turret has housed 3 people: a commander, a gunner, and a loader. They sat above the hull, behind the main gun, surrounded by ammunition. The whole top of the tank was a crew compartment. The M1E3 turret has no people in it. The Army calls it an unmanned turret. The 3 crew members, now reduced from 4 because the loader has been replaced by a machine, sit together inside an armored capsule built into the front of the hull. The gun is loaded automatically. The turret rotates and fires under remote control. The crew is no longer in the part of the tank that gets hit first. This is the single largest change to the design philosophy of an American tank in over half a century. For decades, the Army had refused to put autoloaders into Abrams variants. The Russians used them. So did the French, the Japanese, and the South Koreans. American doctrine treated the human loader as a feature, not a limitation. He could clear jams, swap ammunition types on the fly, and act as a 4th set of eyes inside the vehicle. He was redundancy in human form. The footage from Ukraine ended that argument. When a T-72 or a T-90 took a hit to its turret, the carousel of ammunition stored under the gun often detonated. The entire turret would launch into the air, sometimes flipping completely upside down. Tankers started calling it the Jack-in-the-Box effect. The crew did not survive. The M1E3 fixes this by isolating the ammunition from the people entirely. The autoloader sits in the rear of the turret, behind blast doors, with the rounds stored in a separate compartment. If something cooks off, the explosion vents upward and outward. The crew capsule down in the hull stays sealed. The new ammunition is the second thing that matters here, and it is the part that is now finally going down range in live fire trials. The main gun on the M1E3 is the same 120mm M256 smoothbore that has been on the Abrams for the last 30 years. The Army considered going larger. They looked at the German 130mm cannon, and they looked at the French Ascalon system. They decided to stay with 120mm for now, because the round it fires is already doing the job. The round is the M829A4. It is the fourth generation of what the Army calls the Silver Bullet, its nickname for the kinetic energy penetrator family. The round itself looks like a long dart made of depleted uranium, surrounded by a 3-petal sabot that falls away once the projectile leaves the barrel. The dart travels at over a mile per second. When it hits armor, it does not explode. It punches through. Depleted uranium is the densest readily available metal on Earth, twice as heavy as steel, and it has a property that no other tank round material has. As it penetrates armor, the tip of the dart sharpens itself. It does not deform and blunt the way tungsten does. It stays sharp all the way through. Against a modern Russian T-90 with reactive armor and a thick frontal plate, the M829A4 does not slow down meaningfully. It passes through the armor, into the crew compartment, and out the other side. The Army field tested earlier versions of this round in Iraq. There are still photographs floating around of T-72 turrets with 2 holes drilled through them in a straight line, entry and exit, from a single Abrams round. The M1E3 is the first American tank built specifically around this ammunition, rather than adapted to it. The autoloader, the fire control system, and the targeting optics are all integrated with the round's onboard data link, which lets the tank's computer send instructions to the projectile before it leaves the barrel. If you have made it this far, the channel covers stories like this every week. The history, the hardware, and the decisions that get made in rooms most people never see inside of. If that sounds like something you want more of, subscribe. We have plenty more coming. The testing now happening with the M1E3 is being run out of Fort Hood, Texas, by the 1st Cavalry Division. The first prototype will be joined by 3 more through the course of the year, forming a single platoon. That platoon will then drive the tank, fire it, maintain it, and try to break it for as long as it takes to learn what works. The targets on the range are not just other tanks. The Army learned in Ukraine that the modern battlefield is not a tank-on-tank battlefield. Pure armor duels happen, but they are rare. What armor actually faces, every single day in modern combat, is a layered threat. Anti-tank guided missiles get fired from concealed infantry positions at ranges out past 3 kilometers. Loitering munitions and small drones come from above, sometimes through open hatches and under fenders. Mines wait in the roads, artillery comes down from over the horizon, and attack helicopters stand off at distance to pick their targets. So the M1E3 is being tested against all of those things. The active protection system mounted on the turret is called the XM251. It is the American designation for an Israeli system called Iron Fist, built by Elbit Systems. It uses small radar units to detect incoming projectiles. When it picks up a threat, it launches a counter projectile that detonates in the air, breaking up the incoming round before it reaches the tank. The system is also being tuned, for the first time on an American tank, to engage loitering munitions in flight. On top of the turret sits a remote weapon station carrying a 40mm automatic grenade launcher, a coaxial machine gun, and a Javelin missile launcher. It is paired with a small radar called Echo Guard, which scans the sky for drones. When it spots one, the operator inside the hull can engage it without ever exposing himself. The hybrid power plant is being tested as hard as anything else. The new drivetrain replaces the gas turbine that defined the Abrams for 40 years. The turbine was loud, thirsty, and required a specific kind of fuel logistics that no other American ground vehicle needed. The new system uses a Caterpillar C13D diesel engine paired with an electric drive component. It is quieter, it sips around 40% less fuel, and it can move the tank in silent mode at low speeds for short distances. That last capability matters more than it sounds. A tank that can creep forward without making the sound of a hairdryer the size of a refrigerator is a tank that can ambush. The Abrams has never been able to do that before. The whole vehicle weighs around 60 tons. That is 18 tons lighter than the SEP V3 it is replacing, which means it can cross more bridges, fit on more transport aircraft, and operate in the kind of infrastructure-poor terrain that Ukraine has been fighting through for the last 4 years. There are still open questions about this tank. The armor on the production model has not been finalized. The autoloader on the prototype is essentially a development article and may need to be redesigned before serial production. The Iron Fist system carries only 4 interceptors. In a sustained drone attack, that runs out fast. And there is a deeper question that the testing in 2026 is supposed to answer. The Army has built a tank that solves the problems of the last war. The crew is protected from ammunition cook-off, which was the leading killer of armored crews in Ukraine. The active protection system is designed to defeat the precision threats that have been burning Russian armor across the front, and the lighter weight addresses the logistics problem that crushed entire armored brigades over hundreds of miles of advance. But the next war may not look like this one. It may not give the autoloader time to cycle around. It may show up with drones smart enough to wait for the active protection system to empty its magazine before striking. The Army knows this. That is why the M1E3 is described, in its own program documents, as a vehicle built around open architecture. The systems can be swapped out, the software updated, the radar replaced, the armor packages changed at need. The whole tank is meant to evolve faster than the threats it faces. Whether that will actually work is the thing the live fire testing in Texas is trying to find out. The Army wants a production decision by 2027, full initial operational capability by 2030, serial production sometime after that. If everything goes well, the M1E3 will be the tank that American crews take into combat for the next several decades. If it does not go well, the United States will be the only major power without a 5th-generation main battle tank in production. The trials are happening now. The footage will eventually be released, and the targets, for once, are catching up to the gun. So here is the real question. Has the Army actually built the tank for the war that is coming, or just the tank for the war that just ended?